more issues like voting and other related approaches in meetings, that we get one single briefing, and then we will decide how do we take the processes forward as the different committees of the two houses. That is precisely the reason we're here today, and we hope we'll have a very fruitful meeting. Where there are hiccups, please bear with us. I will come later before I give to the department on how then are we going to follow the procedure according to the directive that we have been given from the House chairpersons on trying to manage meetings of the joint committees. Before any further I do, can I give the chairperson of the NCOP for the opening remarks, please?
Thank you, Chairperson. Let me take this opportunity to welcome the Minister and DG and all the members of from the department, Chairperson from the Portfolio Committee, and the Member of Parliament, because when he's joined, it's Parliament, it's not Select Committee and NA, it's a Parliament. So you are welcome, members. Today we are meeting after many things happened. 2 days ago, the President has announced that we are going to we are going to level 3, whereby we are going to see many things happening, and where he opened the economy, because last time our economy did go down. And again, after we have downgraded, there's a lot of things that happened. Today we are meeting with the department, where we know that when we go to level 3, mining and all the companies will be working in 100%. So we want to know the readiness of the department on this issue, because last week many mines tested workers. The number are increasing every day. Go to Limpopo, you go to Carltonville, the number are increasing. Now we want to know from the Minister and his department to check, are they ready to make sure that this corona must not spread all over the mining, because we expected our economy to rise from mining. Thank you. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Chair. You might have to find a better location there, because there seem to be some bit of hiccups, or I don't know whether it's from where I am as sitting, but in the less than 1 minute, honorable members, we are going to receive a briefing from the department. As I've said, we will try and we will explain the process that will follow in terms of the questions for clarity and other related matters on the briefing. But mostly we will try and balance the members of the NCOP vis-a-vis the members of the NA, so that there is no one of the two committees that might be affected most compared to the other. But we will explain that process when we arrive there. We will give all members equal time for their inputs, but you will see that with the number that we have, it is too much to have enough space of time. But where opportunity arises to have follow-ups and so forth, we'll also allow that. Without any delays, welcome, Minister, as the Chair has said, with your team. I forgot. Any apologies from the, they heard that there's an apology from the NCOP. Members will be joining us a bit late. I got that there's an apology from the NA of Mr. Ngumalo, who will join us at 12:30. 12. Any other apology?
Yes, Chair. Yes, Chair. From our side, Honorable Bibi won't be with us. She's ill.
Okay. Honorable, if that is the case, we will take others as they come. Honorable Minister and your team, thank you very much. We don't have enough time. We would have loved to be with you for quite a longer time. If it could take 4 hours, that would have been appreciated.
Hello.
But unfortunately, we are allocated this time. You were lucky the last time you came to the committee of NA, it was 2 hours. This time around, at least we've got 3 hours. Of that 3 hours, we give you 45 minutes with the presentation. It means by 12:55, thank you very much, Honorable Minister and your team.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee and Chairperson of the Select Committee. Honorable members who are here from both houses, team from the DMRE, the DGs there and a big team. We were called to talk about responses to COVID-19. And we thought that in the main, it was a discussion on the economic recovery plans. But we're ready to deal with any situation in the industry. The chairperson of the Select Committee, for example, is seeing the situation in Limpopo and Carltonville as issues that must be addressed. What do we do to stop the spread? You know, there was a lockdown. The intention of the lockdown was not to stop the spread, was to flatten the curve. That terminology was selected carefully because you can't stop a virus that spread on its own. You can't stop. We delay the peak of the infections. I think it is important to bring the two committees to where we started. When there was a lockdown, we went to cabinet as DMRE and complained that people are tested, but mining areas were not testing. And we said there's a concentration of workers in mining areas, and therefore testing was essential. And after a long fight, it was agreed that, okay, it will start. And it was quite clear that testing wouldn't start unless workers return to mining areas. Otherwise, they go to villages and disappear in villages. That's why we made a proposal to open the mines systematically in a phased way. Then we put in place rules of return. We said, one, all the health prescription must be in place. That is mask, sanitizing, social distancing, and we listed all of them. Number two, we said there must be compulsory screening and actually testing where there are signs. And we did what is called unannounced visits to the mines. And we came back and met the Mineral Council and said to them, Mineral Council, your members are doing well up to screening, but there is very limited testing. And therefore we urge mines to test. Because if we don't test, we're going to hide the extent of infection in the mines. that program was put in place, we began to pick up cases. Let me give you, let me talk to just 3 examples. One, when we went to Marula, we discovered that in Marula there was screening and testing. And we said, please do test workers. It is in Marula where we discovered 19 positive cases. We welcomed that. There was that, and therefore there was quarantine facilities and there was medical facilities readily available for those workers. Then we went to Dwar's Refill. We discovered 1 case, and we discovered that the mine was not screening and it was not testing. Our inspectorate issued a Section 54 and stopped the operations. And once those operations were stopped, we said, thou shalt screen and test. It is there that we got up to 31 plus positive cases. Then there is Mponeng, which is the first actually incident of finding cases from workings. And it is good that the mine itself offered to close those operations, because in any way we'll close them because the infections were underground. And when you have infections underground, you are forced to close that operation. Up to yesterday, we discovered 164 cases, because then they started what is called mandatory testing. They said that everybody, 164 cases that are positive constitute 1/3 of the cases that were tested. 2/3 were tested negative. Then it was going to move to the next batch of workers. That is where we are. And from where we are, we say screening and testing must continue, because if we don't do that, we'll hide the extent of the impact. Let me leave that. Let me come now to the economic impact of COVID-19. COVID-19 is projected to actually have what is called deteriorating global growth. Globally, growth is projected to be worse than ever before. You can take area by area, major economy by major economy. And let's come to South Africa then. South Africa will grow by less than 1% in 2020 economically. And it will start picking up in terms of the forecast in 2021 and further grow in 2022 to 2024. Now, that is what we should be responding to. And we look into annual change of employment and GDP. We discovered that the worst hit sector is going to be construction, followed by transport and communication, followed by electricity, gas and water, followed by manufacturing, and then mining and quarrying. Those are the sectors that are going to decline heavily in that order. Only community, social, and personal services are going to register growth, and business services. The rest of the economy is going to register decline, both in terms of GDP and employment. And we looked into what are the issues that lead to that, what are the drivers for the declining growth. One in South Africa is poor education outcomes. They continue to impact negatively on the economy. A low level of labor intensity. As we modernize the economy, the less jobs are created. The skills constraints, spatial fragmentation of urban landscape and travel costs. That means if you are working in Joburg, you must travel from Soweto, which are the apartheid spatial design. The concentration of industrial structures, which means that we have not changed the economic structure. The concentration remains at 3 points, which is the Witwatersrand, Durban and areas, and the Cape Town area. And inefficient public entities, all those are actually contributing to our difficulties in recovering quick. And the long swing in commodity prices now are in a downward phase. The collapse of consumer and business confidence. And there's also a decline in both supply and demand in the economy. I want to leave it at that and say, basically, we are dealing with 4 shocks in terms of the national analysis. Is the healthcare crisis, is the domestic economic have stopped, the global economy has stopped, and the collapse of access to capital markets. Now, that national analysis of the government has guided our approach to what we should do as a sector to contribute to the recovery. We looked into some few issues in the sector before I gave to the DG to leave the input of what practical actions are there. First thing that we said is that what we should normally do, the normal activities in the department should be normalized and be firmed up. Then begin to look into a growth strategy. One, the supply disruptions of the components and equipment contribute to the negative growth. 2, the mining should be accompanied by industrial growth. So mining, for example, when we opened it, the manufacturing was not opened at the same pace, meaning that the supply of components to the mining industry did hinder a full capacity of the mining industry. The energy we still regard it as being critical. We should start by beginning to target SMEs in the mining industry. Half the time we focus on big companies. The impact on the GDP will decline, tax revenue will decline, and the role of the state should be more clarified. And having done that, the contribution of the mining to the fiscus has increased over the last few years and should continue increasing. But I thought that we should anchor the presentation of the department to this preamble so that we understand what is it that we're responding to. Now I'm going to hand over to the DG to lead the actual formal presentation of the economic intervention response to COVID impact and the downgrade by the department. Over to you, DG. Ukhona DG or ubalekile?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
DG, your mic is off.
DG, unmute.
Mute. If it is you, Tabo M, your mic is on mute.
Okay,
DG,
sir.
unmute.
Let me use your browser. Honourable Minister, I'm here now. No, I'm back, Honourable Minister. Good afternoon. No, sorry, Minister, we a little bit of a technical glitch here. Good afternoon, Honourable Chair of the PPC and also the Chairperson of the Select Committee and members of the two committees. We have a detailed presentation that we have prepared for the meeting. We have a full team here of the DDGs. Now we have the head of strategy as well that will be taking us through the presentation. But as the Minister has requested that maybe I should just at a high level deal with the challenges. We know that as a sector, we have a responsibility of responding adequately in line with what the Minister has raised. On slide 1, we are just making reference in terms of the COVID-19 challenges that we have to deal with as a department. I'm not going to repeat this. Now we are highlighting the results that we got out of a lockdown. That is what the slide actually indicates. And also the decision that was taken by government through the National Command Council. Honourable Minister? Hello, Minister?
Oh, I'm not the Minister yet.
Yes, Chair.
Just note I'm not the Minister yet.
Oh,
please, can you try? No, you can continue, but can you try and put your presentation on the screen? Can you ask your technical staff in the meantime to put it on the screen, because we can't see it, although we do have it on our gadgets, but for the sake of expedience in the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. We have shared it with honourable members. I'm now on slide number 3. I was just on the last paragraph or bullet where we indicate that the National Command Council resolved to reopen the economy in a risk-adjusted approach. And now the department had to put all the measures and initiatives in place as the Minister has indicated. Now, moving to slide number 4, Chair, as I have also explained that we are looking at our time, we gave you this information on time to go through it, and so I'll just run through the slides. Now, here we are indicating that on bullet number 1, the DMRE complex initiatives and response during the economy reopening with a risk-adjusted approach should take into cognizance that the sector will be operating in an environment where there is a possibility of a reduced global demand for commodities. That is very important to take note of. And also the global shrinking of the major economies who are trading partners. Now, the sector is suboptimally contributing to the GDP of the country. Now, Chair, when you look at all these issues under slide number 4, you can see that even the SLPs, there are going to be some challenges that we would need to deal with, as some of the mining companies would not be able to proceed as a result of this lockdown. But I mean, but the department, under the leadership of the executive authority, we are looking at different measures on how can we ameliorate the impact of this, pandemic as a result of a lockdown. Slide number 5. We are indicating there in terms of the electricity challenge that in recent years, the South African economy has seen the challenge of electricity demand and load shedding due to constrained generation capacity as a result of existing low availability factor of Eskom generation plants. The load shedding has had a negative impact on the energy-intensive industry and the economy at large. And so we'll be looking at the various measures of cost. I mean, we have looked at the cost of the electricity as well, but we believe that, with the strategy that the department has adopted, or government in general, we should be able progressively respond to some of the challenges. As we can see that there is a high electricity price, load shedding, technology advancement, also driving consumers to alternative power supply options. On slide number 6, there we are indicating oil price crash challenge on fuel industry globally. Now, I'll just deal with number 1 or bullet number 1 there, where we indicate that oil prices have plunked across the board due to a combination of the worldwide slowdown in economic activity caused by lockdowns in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, and also the differences between oil-producing countries such as Saudi Arabia and Russia. Now, we know that the global demand for the oil has, dropped. We're looking at 29 million barrels per day compared to about 100 million barrels. And so these are some of the global issues that we are reflecting on in as far as the oil price crash is concerned. Slide number 7, we are also touching on the oil price crash challenge on the fuel industry globally. Here we are indicating that the fall in price of Brent crude oil will mean the following for South Africa, and we formulated responses in taking into account the following. Falling oil prices could mean falling liquid natural gas prices. The lower price for oil and gas due to also the financial crisis. We have looked specifically at the diminishing energy demand and also a contraction of credit with which to make purchases, lower corporate earnings, which may lead to lower contribution to the tax base and the GDP. We also looked around the challenge of a country being reduced to a junk status, and so that has also presented its own challenges. On slide number 8, we are looking at the mining sector challenge framed. Here we are looking at small operators who were struggling even before the COVID-19, that it may be difficult for them to survive post the pandemic. Now, we have to come up with mechanisms and measures on how we are going to assist and working together, of course, with the industry. New projects and the potential investment may be delayed indefinitely or cancelled as a result of the COVID-19, and this may also have a potential for massive job losses. But remember that the minister issued a directive as well through the guidelines, looking specifically around the question of the companies that are contemplating of retrenching employees during this period. We had a challenge that people could not be consulted, and the minister convened a meeting with different mining companies to address this challenge, that it would not be appropriate that during this period the companies are calling people and telling them that they're going to retrench. And so we have managed to find each other there with mining companies, but we know that it is still a challenge that we have to deal with. As you know that we have Section 52 of the MPRTA that we are managing. Now, we'll ensure that whatever measures that would assist in ameliorating against the impact that we may be confronted with, all those measures are taken in place. Now, we have also indicated here that some of the applications currently pending assessment by the department, especially those struggling to provide a proof of technical and financial ability, may be withdrawn by the applicants due to lack of funding. While there has not been a massive scale of exploration and prospecting, post-COVID-19 will worsen the situation, and potential migration of prospecting activities to mining companies may become minimal or non-existent. Now, the other issue here, Chair, that we are looking at the BE partners in some instances that may be further indebted. And so these are some of the issues that we have looked at as a result of this COVID-19. But of course, we need to put measures in place. Now, Chair, we have a full response or responses that we have formulated in the next slide. Can't see my numbering here, but that should be slide number 10 that I am at, where it says DMRE Group Business Readiness. Now, here we are looking at initiatives. I'll not go through each and every slide here, but we are stating that in terms of COVID-19 specific intervention under employee wellness program, because as a department as well, we have a responsibility to make sure that when our employees do come back. All the measures are put in place as well. In as much as we are looking at mining companies, there you can see that we are looking at infection monitoring. We are also looking at occupational health and safety. And so we are still actually, dealing with all these issues, but we are making a good progress. On the next slide, the heading is support to companies and workers with SAMI, immediate to medium term to is 0 to 12 months. That's what we are looking at. There we are indicating some of the work that the minister has done in the department, looking specifically around the question of consultation with relevant stakeholders, the measures that we have put in place in the form of directions and also guidelines that we have put in place. As you know that during this period, we have issued a directive to all mining operations to ensure that they have start-up procedures as the sector prepared to ramp up to 50%. Now that the sector will be ramping up to 100%, I must also amplify this point that from the 1st of June, it doesn't mean that the companies are going to have people at work, 100%. And so, as the minister has been saying, this thing or this point that is going to be a ramp up as we, move forward. Now, there you can see, Chair and honourable members, honourable chairs, and honourable members, in terms of the impact that we are trying to achieve, or to make sure that we ameliorate the impact of some of the challenges that would come as a result of COVID-19. Now, on industrialization, support healthcare through technology development. Now, we are stating there that we are, looking at manufacturing of hand and surface sanitizers, and also manufacturing of masks and face shields. You have seen the minister with his face, shield as well. Development of COVID-19 virus rapid test kits, and also COVID-19 antibody rapid test kits. Production of antigens and antibodies, as well as mass production of the above. And so there we are looking specifically the impact that will get. It will be the support that will be given to the health sector in diagnosing coronavirus, and also creation of new jobs, industries, and technical know-hows through the locally manufactured, goods. As you know that both Mintech and Pelcam, as part of the collaboration between the state-owned entities under the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, we are making sure that there is a synergy and a proper collaboration between our entities in responding to COVID-19 challenges even posed. Now, the next slide with the heading industrialization, starting with localization of active pharmaceutical ingredients. Now we are looking at Ketlapele project here, and also locally manufacture and supply of active pharmaceutical ingredients. Now we are also looking at fluorochemicals complex for Tutukane project for pre-feasibility approval. And so these are some of the initiatives that we are taking into account. Now the impact there, it will be security of supply of pharmaceutical products, and also creation of local production capacity. And of course, as a result of that, there will be some jobs created, and also grow chemical industry, as well as improve a balance of trade. The next slide, which starts with the carbon capture and utilization, through the utilization of carbon as a feedstock to manufacture chemicals and also fuels and etc. And so we'll be looking at this specific work. As you know that we have a team that we have also assigned to look at this very important responsibility. We're looking at SANEDI as well as the Council for Geoscience. They are quite actively involved in this work. Now, coming to the next slide, which is number 3. I will not go through each and everything. We're just indicating those initiatives under industrialization that we'll be looking at, especially on issues of energy efficiency projects. Now we have the timeline that we have put for the department. Now, on the next slide, which starts with energy security, procurement of additional capacity, medium term, 6 to 12 months. There we are indicating that procurement of additional power from existing IPPs, we are specifically looking around 128 megawatts. And we also have ESCOM to procure short-term power, and that is around 550 megawatts. Now, the DDG will give more details, Chair, perhaps during questions around the work that we are doing on the issue of procurement of additional capacity. Now, we also have a program there on nuclear build acceleration. As you know that we have been presenting to you as the two committees about the nuclear new build program, as well as the power plant life extension, for Quebec. And so the work is progressing. We are attending to all the issues, working together with NNR, ESCOM, DPE, and those are some of the departments that are involved at the moment. The next slide, also on energy security, allocation of fuel price benefit. We are saying that we need to ensure fuel price benefits are passed to end consumers, thus indirectly contributing to the lowering of inflation for the benefit of all South Africans, lowered cost of doing business within the country. Now, the government through the SFF is also looking at the opportunity of increasing the levels of strategic stocks through purchasing of crude oil at these lower prices. And so as we know that the prices are quite low. And now there you can see the timeline. We are saying that it is on the immediate, and funding will be borne by the department through our entities. As you know that we have a CF group as well. Now we are looking at the impact that this will bring to the economy, the country, to work towards the lowering of price inflation, lower interest rates, and low cost of doing business in the country through fuel price relief, which will directly contribute to reduced cost of doing business in the country. Those are some of the good results that we would enjoy as a result of this intervention. The other issue still, the next slide, ensure energy security. Here we are making reference on fast tracking of application, processes, and also reduction of regulatory burden on new electricity applications. But we are not saying that it is going to be a mediocre here. The compliance with the law, it is still critical, but we are saying that within the confines of the law, how can we expedite the implementation of these programs or projects without giving an excuse that the law says this or that. And so that is a decision that has been taken by the department, that everything will be done within the confines of the law, but we need to think out of the box in making sure that we accelerate our pace in responding to some of the challenges that we are faced with, because we are dealing with a new normal here. And so we are alive to this fact. And so the next slide, Honorable Chair and honorable members, here we are indicating energy security, shifting of power stations. And so we have explained, we have given, quite a number of initiatives that we'll be looking at. As we can see, Mossel Bay refinery upgrade, Lpg Gas Supply. And so we have the list of all those interventions that we will be looking at. And we have specific timelines that we have put. And so there is also funding that we have stipulated how much will be required per project, and also the end result in terms of what will be the impact of all these initiatives. The next slide on LPG gas supply. Now here we are saying that to convert key customers from electricity to LPG. And so these are some of the initiatives, as well as that LPG would actually become the future in terms of the consumption by our people. And also we are looking together, working with our other sector departments, with state entities, because we need to find each other to convert some of ESCOM plants. And so these are some of the initiatives that we are looking at, You can see there on your right-hand side in terms of the impact that you are looking at. And also, Chair, we are looking at liquid fuels, that we need to also to come up with measures in ensuring that we expedite on this particular responsibility. The next slide, which starts with trading, supply and logistics, to expand the distribution network, and so that is the essence. And also, the acquisition of existing downstream player. Now, these are some of the things that we will be looking at as a department. The next slide, where we are saying energy security, demand management. There we have an initiative that we are going to be taking, leverage crude oil storage tanks in Saldanha Bay and Durban. Now, the timeline is between 9 and 12 months. And now you have the impact and also the usage or use of storage tanks that have access capacity in line with the Petroleum Pipelines Act to ensure alignment with demand planning. And so the next slide will be on CEF and SFF. Here we are saying that all capital expenditure projects planned for the next 5 years will be fast-tracked with the aim of creating jobs, and also in the medium to long-term, capital projects will be brought forward to be executed in the financial years of 2021, 2022 to 2023 and 24. And now here, Chair, perhaps the Minister will touch on this point. We have presented to the committee in terms of some of the work that we are doing in line with the repurposing and rationalization of the state-owned entities. I'm sure the Minister will touch on this point at the end. Now, coming to the mining sector, Chair, I will not spend a lot of time here. We are looking at exploration. There we have medium-term interventions, that is 6 to 12 months. And now we are saying that the Council for Geoscience to conduct exploration in 4 priority target areas for handover to the department. Now, we are also trying to make sure that there is an investment in exploration. Now we have our entity, which is a CGS, that will be assisting us in this work. The mineral targets to be explored will contribute to renewable energy in support of the RP 2019 electronics in advancing the 4th industrial revolution in this digital era. And, we are looking at the specific areas that we are going to target. That is Haramokoka, Kenhardt, Kleinfontein, and Giyani. Now, the submission in inclusion on inclusion of exploration activities in the COVID-19 regulations. Here, the executive authority, which is the minister of the department, realized the importance, as well as some of the work had to be done under COVID-19 in terms of the results, looking at the stability of the ground and so forth. And now Council for Geoscience was also included in the directions that the minister issued in monitoring the work that needs to be done, and also to make sure that there is a safety in terms of the operations of mining companies. Now, there we have the impact that we are going to derive out of this initiative. The next slide, Honorable Chairs, we have investment attraction and economic stimulation. We are looking at CEF group that in country hydrocarbon resources. Now the target here is 20% equity interest in all exploration and development of hydrocarbon resources in the country. I will need to run with speed, Chair. I'm left with, the time is almost over. Let me just proceed quickly, Chair, to the next slide.
You're left with 5 minutes, DJ.
Okay. The next slide, there is a problem with, is slide number 32, where we are looking at nuclear waste. We are now saying here, NOARTI would engage with waste generators such as NEXA, NTP, and Quebec to accelerate their waste disposal shipments to Valputs. And now we are looking at the timeline, which is 6 to 12 months, and also the impact that this will bring, Chair. And also the institution or the SOE would use research and development capacity to site, to design, build, and operate new radioactive waste disposal. We are also looking at the establishment of a centralized interim storage facility as well. And so there you have funding or cost implications, Honorable Chairs. Now, funding of distressed mines and new mines in the medium term, we have specific interventions. Here we are saying that mining operations funding through reprioritization, the DMRE to explore possibility of unlocking resources in the trust fund for alternative application. This will entail investigation on the probability of amending the trust deed. This is something that can be done internally in consultation with relevant department, and also probability of trust termination, setting up a new SPV and a formulation of a new trust. And so these are some of the measures that we are emphasizing that if we put them in place, they would assist in responding to some of the COVID-19 or post-COVID-19 challenges. And also, we are looking at the interest from the Rehabilitation Trust Fund, but we are going to be very responsible here. We have been given a clear guidance by the minister that as we'll be doing this, and so this must also conform or confine, to the legal prescripts. Now, on the long-term interventions, Chair, we're looking at energy procurement. Now, on the emergency procurement program, we are looking between 18 to 24 months. I know that this is still actually a challenge in terms of the time frame. We are also trying to see how can we put mechanisms in place to bring some of these projects closer for implementation, and also to procure 2,000 megawatts from projects that connect within 12 months from approval. And now the work also has to start, for 2022 to 2027. As you can see there in terms of the RP allocations, Chair, I will not go through each and every aspect. And so, but that is part of the work that you are looking at. But the issue of time frame, it is one of the things that the minister has raised as a concern in terms of how can we expedite the implementation of this project. And so we will be making sure that there is an acceleration in terms of the implementation of all these projects. Now, the issue of carbon capture and utilization pilot plant construction through the utilization of carbon as a feedstock to manufacture chemicals. And so we are indicating what will be the impact. And so it is still a work in progress, but this is one of the interventions that will be looking. Now, contribution to the economy. Here we are indicating, Chair, that is slide number 36, that proven oil industry economic consumption. Now we are saying that what we have looked at is that 4 jobs for every 1 million of investment. And so there are also multiplier effects that we can look at in terms of the economy. And we're also looking roughly plus minus 100 new jobs, 100,000 actually new jobs to be created, and also with a contribution of 40 billion rand additional contribution to the economy, and 9 billion rands additional contribution to government revenue. I think, Chair, we have tried to summarize the presentation, but with the understanding that honorable members had an opportunity to go through the presentation. Thank you very much, honorable chairs, and also honorable members and the minister. Over to you, honorable minister.
Honorable Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee and the Chairperson of the Select Committee, I think the best thing to do is to deal with the questions rather than pumping you with information and not answer to your questions. I think we must give it to your questions. Then the team is available to answer the questions. I will answer all the simple ones and throw all the complex ones to the team. Thank you, Chairpersons.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Honorable Minister and DG. You can lift off the presentation now, the one who was responsible for it. Honorable members will do this thing like this manner, like we're guided also by the chairpersons. We will do mainly according to ensure that there is effective participation of the two committees. 1, 2, ensure that there is proper representation in terms of the political party setup. We will take the first 3 from the NA, and then we'll take the first 3 guided by the chair of the NCOP, and then we'll take the other 3 from the NA, and then another 3 from the NCOP, then the department will respond. We will take the last, or probably, I hope, the last 3 or so on the second batch of questions, and then from both houses, committees, and then subsequently we will then deal and see whether there's still time for questions of clarity. So we ask members, please, 3 minutes per member, and we must stick to that 3 minutes. Less preambles, straight to the point. It's either is a question or is a point of opinion, but it should not exceed 3 minutes. I request members to do like I do. If you've got your cell phone or something, put your cell phone on the alarm. Not on the alarm, sorry, on the stopwatch. The stopwatch is going to tell you that now it's 1 minute, it's 2 minutes. On your 3rd minute, you have already rounded up. Now, can I do it like this now? And then I'll go to the chair of the NCOP. The first 3 is Honorable Mashaule, then Honorable Mailem, then Honorable Shonyane. They will take that 3 minutes, but not now. Don't come in. Let's get chair. Do you have your first 3 from the NCOP?
So can you start on your side? My members are still preparing themselves.
I thought Honorable Ngwenya was in the house. He's not here.
He's here, but you come on the second.
Raising my hand. I'm here. I'm
Can
ready.
we also, can we then say after Honorable Shonyane, it will be Honorable Ngwenya?
Okay, thank you.
Yes. That means we are 4. Then we will take, after Honorable Ngwenya, it's going to be Honorable Malinga. Is Honorable Ngumalo in? If he's not in, let's jump. Is Honorable Bilankulu in? Or you make the meeting very short if that's the case. If Honorable Bilankulu is not in, we'll take Honorable Volmarans. Then we'll go to the last 3. Can we take Honorable Mashaule, your 2 minutes?
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. I have 3 questions or issues. The first one is that slide number 8, bullet point 2, project a potential loss of jobs due to new projects delayed or cancelled. I want to put another dynamic of loss of jobs. Honorable Minister, you would know that business is driven by profit. And when we were at the 50% workforce permissible people who can work, some mines were operating with a profit of the full profit, 100%, meaning 50% workforce, but 100% production. What would stop mines to then say, if we could do it with 50% workforce and get still get the profit that we would get if we had 100% workforce. Why should we return those workers? Are there measures in your negotiations with them that, since this is a pandemic, nobody created it, we save jobs in that regard? That's the first thing. The collaboration of Mintech and Pelcam in producing PPEs, are there discussions internally to have departments, other state SOEs using what would have been produced by Mintech and Pelcam as PPEs? Because you see, the other issue why South African Airways has not made it is because government was not the first entity to support what it has, meaning other department will just fly British Airways and so forth and so forth. So what is being done to make sure that what is produced by Pelcam within the WHO compliance regulations are utilized by other entities of government? The last point, Chair, is that we're sitting with the Mineral Council's dashboard. It's a graph indicating how many people in the mining sector are having or tested positive. And it says that we have total is 312. It further breaks down the gold sector to be 216, the platinum 42, the coal to be 10. And I had hoped that the department would just elaborate a bit on those statistics and what is being done in that regard. My 3 minutes should be fine, Chair. Thank you.
Yes, you are just on time. Mayor Mailam.
Thank you, Chairperson. I want to pick up where Honourable Mahwale left off. The dashboard is very useful, but I'd like to see a similar dashboard for the energy sector. I don't know if that can be produced. And one of the things that we should look at is the percentage of screening and testing in each of those sectors. My second question goes to the transmission of COVID on the mines. Now, do we know whether that was whether the infection arose on the mine or whether it was brought in from outside? In other words, from mine workers returning to the mines. Thirdly, who is responsible for tracing of contacts of the infected personnel? Is it the mines or is it somebody else? The minister spoke about readiness for reopening the economy, and one of the concerns is around fuel stocks and especially diesel. We've got some issues where there is a nationwide shortage of diesel. Minister, if you could, or DG, if you could give us some clarity as to what is being done to address that, and whether there's any cause for concern and whether other fuels are affected as well. Then on slide 19, the DG spoke about procuring downstream assets. I'd like to know which downstream assets specifically you're talking about, who will manage those assets, and what competence is in the entities or department to actually run those assets. With regard to the procurement process for emergency energy, and particularly the risk mitigation power purchase program that was announced in December and January this year, you've indicated that you're looking at 678 megawatts of emergency short-term power. But when that was announced, we were talking 3,000 megawatts. There were 481 responses to the RFI, but could the minister give us some feedback as to what further formal processes have taken place since that RFI was issued and why it's going to take so long? Which brings me on to my next point, which is NERSA. NERSA indicated that there's a 3 to 6 month process for Section 34 determinations, and that doesn't align with the interventions that were announced in SONA, and it doesn't align with the desire to get new generation capacity online as quickly as possible, as the President announced. Just also on that, Minister, you've just gazetted the amendments to Schedule 2 of the Electricity Regulation Act. And one of the things that everybody was expecting was an increase of the limit from 1 megawatt to 10 megawatts for the licensing of new generation, grid-connected new generation. Could you advise if there's any plans to amend that further? Then lastly, Chair, I did write to Advocate Mokoena about this. The South African Diamond and Precious Metals Regulator is apparently impeding exports of diamonds at the moment, in contravention of both the regulations as they have been issued and acting ultra vires. Could you give me some feedback as to whether anything has been done to open up the export of raw diamonds so that we are not further inhibiting the diamond mining sector? Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you, Honorable Melan. Honorable Kanyan.
Thank you, Chair. Well, I only have 3 questions, Chairperson. The first one was that I just need an understanding, because when I look at the presentation, slide 12, we had Mintech that presented last time in our meeting that they were having a prototype. Prototype was ready for the rapid test kits. And I was hoping that maybe the department was going to give us a report on how far that is now, because last time they reported that they had a capacity of producing almost 21 million test kits per annum. So I want to know how far are we with that test kit. And then a second one, Chairperson, was that with the hand sanitizers being used in the mining sector, you know, you have all types of people saying that they can, they do give sanitizers or they produce sanitizers. And my question will be, are these sanitizers being used in the mining sector up to standard with the World Health Organization? And then with the code of practice that was supposed to be in place by the 25th of May, I just want to check with the department that has all the mines complied. Thank you, Chair.
Oh, you spoke like Umam. Chair, NCOP is the person who's only present. Is it Honorable Ngwenya still on the NCOP?
No, Chair. There are other members that they have joined.
Can I give it to you, because I'd only recognize Honorable Ngwenya from this side, but stick to the 3 minutes of those members.
Okay.
If they want to come in.
Yes, yes, Chair. Honorable Ngwenya, and then Honorable Matibe will follow.
Thanks, Chairperson, and also thank you to the Chairperson of the NA. And thank you very much to the presentation from the department and the presentation from the Minister. Chairperson, the presentation touched on some of the APPs of the department regarding to focus on the construction of the petroleum and minerals, particularly on the piece of legislation that the department is planning to introduce in light of COVID-19. My question, Chair, is the gas amendment bill and upstream petroleum bill, how will they be classified in terms of the Constitution? Will they be classified as Section 76 or Section 75? We need to know in order to plan our legislative program very well. The second question, Chairperson, how much is the funding of the small-scale mining, which is planned to be utilized to assist small and junior mines to restart their operation? The third question, Chairperson, what plan do mining companies have to reduce loss of employment as they take precautions to reduce the spread of COVID-19 as major operation by large companies close companies? The last question, Chairperson, does the government have a plan to resuscitate small-scale companies that closed down due to the impact of the COVID-19. We all know that most small and medium business are hard hit by the pandemic, and most belong to Black entrepreneurs that the NDP is trying to bring over as playing in the economy. Thanks very much, Chairperson. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Ngwenya. You will follow by Honorable Matibe.
Thanks, Chairperson. I've just joined the meeting now. Can I have your indulgence? I will come back after the response. I don't want to repeat what has been said.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks.
No, thanks. Chairperson, let me ask one question from my side. One of the challenges that are facing mine workers is a transportation company table before their workers' transportation plan during this COVID-19 period, Honorable Minister. That's my question. Thanks, Chair. Then back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Chair. Can I, no, these people, I understand that there have been technical challenges today. I'm told Honorable Mtenjane and the other committee secretary, Ms. Boss, have been kicked out, but they are still trying to reconnect them. The DG was saying at some point, I tried to keep the questions, but I hope if they have missed some, we will ask those members to repeat if they've got questions that were missed, but I'm told that they have been reconnected. Honorable Malinga has been reconnected, but we'll do our level best to make sure that all members. Can I then take the last batch? Now is Honorable Malinga. I know Honorable Numale is not here. Honorable Malinga. Then if he's not here, we will take Honorable Mtenjane, and then no, we'll take Honorable Malinga and yeah, Honorable Mtenjane.
Thank you, Chairperson. Greetings to the chairpersons of both the Portfolio Committee and the Select Committee, and greetings to the Minister and the Department and colleagues from both the NCOP and Parliament. Chairperson, let me just start by commending the Department on their instruction to the houses for the rigorous testing. Because if they did not even do the unannounced visits, they wouldn't have found out that the mining houses were not testing their employees. I think this helped so that we are able to be aware of how many people have been infected in the mining industry and precautionary measures are taken. Also applaud the mining houses chair that have put in place the quarantine facilities, and chair just only to check if the health, because I heard the minister talking about the health facilities that are put up by mines. Is he talking about clinics that are owned by mines? Do those clinics also cater for the surrounding communities in those mines? The person also, with the oil price being low, what is the department doing to capitalize on making sure that we have enough oil at a lesser price? Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, Honorable Mtenjane.
Yes, thank you very much, Chairperson. And thank you for the department for the presentation. Yes, well, even if then this, some of these things here which were presented today, they make a lot of contradiction when compared with the last presentation last time. And we said about this, I remember I asked a question to the minister that now that there is a COVID-19, where is the report about that, about the department? And then he said they will come back later on, which is today. Now, there are a lot of contradiction there. For example, I will start with this now. Minister, you are saying here by your own mouth that you cannot stop the virus that is spreading on its own. It's you who are saying that. And we are saying here, no, it's not correct. We don't agree with you. We are not necessarily also saying that this department must cure the virus. We are saying it must minimize it so it can stop it. By these workers, if they stay at home, they can stop the spreading of the virus. Now, we are saying, in short, it's wrong for this mining to open, especially the fact that not all the mines are essentials. We understand on the mining, on the coal mining, because we need electricity. But you can't say platinum is essential. You can't say gold is essential. That tells us that this department or this government is just worried about profit and everything. It's not worried about the people. Because what is going to happen here, these people will contract the disease there and then come back to the families and spread more of this disease. And then there are a lot of things that you saying with your own mouth, Minister. You are saying you have discovered, when you do inspection, you have discovered yourself that some mines are not doing screening and are not also doing testing. It's you who told us that. But you said yet people must go to work. What you want as a minister is not what the mines will do. You know, the mines, most of them are capitalists. They only want money. They want profit. They don't care about the life of our people. And we cannot allow that, Minister. Then you further on say, you have opened mines systematically. What do you mean about that? What do you mean to open a mine systematically? Because you won't be there always to monitor the day-to-day running of those mines. That is why these people will then contract the disease and spread it along themselves and come back to their families, and also spread it. That's why some of these mines, it's not even important for them to be open. They should shut down. They must close completely. And then we wait until this pandemic is low or is finished. Then we can start afresh. Not like this this issue of being driven by profit. This department is here now today, repeating exactly what some of the entities have said last week, of which we agree. For example, the fact that Mintech is producing testing kits for this virus and the AIDS and all those things. We agreed last week, and we are repeating it again now today. So today we want you to tell us about your plan as a department.
Can you round up, Babum Chanjan?
Not what your entities are going to do. So there are a lot of other questions here. And then you are saying us lastly, there is a confirmation of cases on the mines for people who are positive. It's 312. Now, Minister, the question is, what does it say to you? These 312 people, they got families. What will happen if these 312 multiply?
Thank you, Honorable Chanjan. Thank you, Honorable Chanjan. Honorable members, we are not trying. Remember, there are still other members that are supposed to come on the last batch. We are trying to make it a point that almost every member who is in this committee meeting today must be able to participate. So let's try and share the time we have. If we still remain with time beyond this, when members have spoken, we will still open for questions or follow-ups, and we will do almost a similar exercise, allow members to make follow-ups. But let's try our time. It's not that we wish to be smart, but we are trying our level best. That I know there are members also who have asked whether they are still considered. Every member will have to speak in the meeting today, and we'll do everything possible that a member can. Can I go back then to the department to give responses? The time now is 22. can they please, in the response, come back at 22? 2. Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. I will answer a few questions and give the team the chance to answer the rest. Let me start with the first one. Allowing companies to operate at 50% and make 100% profit, why they can't retrench? My answer to that question is very simple. When there was lockdown, 4 companies approached us wanting to issue Section 189, meaning that their intention to retrench, not because they were making profit. 2 collieries had lost totally the demand of their product, and the other one was actually in trouble in terms of its cash flow. We stopped all of them and said, don't retrench during lockdown. All of them complied. Now, post-lockdown, they will start engaging the unions, but we said you can't retrench when unions' mobility is limited. Let's stop there. But now, if you say you produce 100% profit, 50% workforce, now that's a question of speculation, because profits can be calculated and what workforce is also calculated. At this point in time, the question wants us to speculate, and we're not going to speculate. There's no company that has indicated its desire to retrench because it is making huge profits without the workforce. The second one is whether the infection is important originally. Let me take, for example, the Limpopo case in not Dwas River, the Marula. In Marula, in the 19 cases, 3 of those cases were from Mozambique. 2 of those cases were from the Eastern Cape. 1 was from Zimbabwe. It means a combination of importing the infection and infecting local communities. I'm saying that because that's why once we completed our visit in Limpopo, we made the point that please quarantine all people who are from epicenters. And we describe epicenters as the Eastern Cape, the Western Cape, Gauteng, to a lesser extent KZN. Say, please quarantine them, screen and test them before they proceed to work. So that is a precaution that is intended to minimize importation of those infections. But the Chief Inspector will deal with that in detail. The question of increasing the limit from 1 megawatt to 10 megawatts, the horse has bolted, Mr. Miller. People must license their business because you get up to 10 megawatts, you have surplus, you will want to trade with that surplus, not unless you say, let's increase it from 1 to 10 and limit or close trade with anybody who produces up to 10 megawatts of self-generation. We think that will be counterproductive because many of the people who do self-generation will always have surplus that they want to trade. Therefore, it is quite correct to actually license them. Imagine the procurement taking too long. What steps have we taken? I'm sure DDG Mbele will answer to that question. But if it's not, I will come back to it. 6 months of NERSA, I'm sure many of those cases, when Mbele answers, he will also tell you that many of the posts that are supposed to take 6 months have been truncated and are taking shorter. Closed mine as a result of COVID-19. As far as I know, there are only 2 mines that have been closed as a result of COVID-19. The first one was Dwasrifir, which was closed by the department, and Mboneng, which management saw it necessary and urgent to close the mine. But the team will answer to those questions. Why can't the department get PPEs at less price? I don't know if the member witnessed the donation of 1 million PPEs by Sibanye Stillwater to the Department of Wealth in the Northwest. And tomorrow, the donation by Petra to the Department of Wealth in Gauteng. It talks to this issue because mining companies must take a bigger responsibility beyond the operation in supplying PPEs. So it is not necessary for the department to buy PPEs for companies who are making profits. They must buy the PPEs, also supply PPEs to communities where they are mining. Mtenjana, honorable member, says we must close the mines. It's an easy solution, can be done, but he must appreciate that when you close those mines, we'll close those jobs. Because if mines are not operating, there will be no jobs. We close the mines, we close the jobs. And basically, he suggests that we close the industry. That's not a solution, it's an emotional reaction to a pandemic that is going to stay with us for a long time. It's not going to disappear in 2 months. It's not going to disappear in 3 months. It's going to be with us a long time. What we should be learning in these processes is to live with COVID-19 in our communities for a long time. I think we took too long to adapt to understand how to deal with HIV/AIDS. But after a long time, we began to adapt and begin to see the improvement of the mortality rate in the presence of HIV/AIDS. Now we'll do the same with COVID-19, we'll adapt, we'll live with it. If you see me, I put a mask and I put a screen. All that is because I want to minimize the spread. He says we made contradictory representation, but he said we can't stop the virus. But he confirms what we're saying, which is his contradiction. We must minimize the impact. That's exactly what I said. That's why I said we wanted to flatten the curve so that the impact of the virus is not attacking us at the same time, but stopping it is not kept in a camp where we can stop it. It's spread everywhere. Actually, you feel it better, and Mtenja, when it hits a person who's close to you, which has happened twice to me in the broader family, that it hit 2 people. When it hit close to you, you feel it, you know that it can't be stopped. We must be careful, we must minimize it, we must actually flatten the curve. So your suggestion that all the mines must be closed is not a solution. Actually, we are proposing a disaster. That's what you are doing, you're proposing a disaster. If you didn't understand the question of how we did this, we said alert level 5, only collieries that supply ESCOM and Sasol should continue at full production. Level 4, we extended that to open cast. Level 3 will ramp up in deep mines. And the reason for that is we want to do screening and testing and be able to be alerted to where the risk is high. Now, we must bring a plan of the department, not the plan of entities. These entities are entities of the department. They're actually implementing tools of the department. These entities are implementing tools of the department. If you want to separate the department and the entities, again, you're making a suggestion which is no solution. And therefore, I want to advise Honorable Mtenjan to take out the emotion and deal with these things of the department rationally. I'm handing over to DJ and the team to answer the remaining questions.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Mr. Msiza will start, then I will wrap up at the end. Over to you, Chief Inspector of Mines.
Thank you, DG. Thank you, Minister. Once again, good afternoon to the Honourable Chairpersons and members and their colleagues. Yes, indeed, as the Minister has indicated, we have been requesting mines to screen and test. As we've been doing the inspections, we have determined that some mines were generally screening, but they were not testing, and hence the cases at Marula and also the cases at Mponeng as well as Dwasrefir, as the Minister has indicated. Just to come to Honourable Mahlaule, the high cases on the dashboard that Honourable Mahlaule has indicated, it's mainly, the gold sector is mainly from Mponeng, and it was after we've agreed with the mine in line with the disaster management regulations that after they've determined that there was one case at the mine, last week, we have said to them, let's just test in line with those regulations. And they've actually done that, and hence those cases. And it's a similar situation with Marula, and also it's a similar situation at Dwasrefir, and hence you'll actually see the numbers. And just to come up to the questions by Honourable Mailam as well. Yes, we work together with the Department of Health, especially in the region, to investigate and make sure that there's contact tracing. So all these mines, they follow the Department of Health guidelines, which were issued to say that if there's a case, then they have to follow contact tracing. And for those that have been traced, we also encourage, in line with those guidelines, that there must be testing, and those mines have actually been doing that, including at Mponeng and Marula mine. And also on the issue of quarantine, yes, we have, in line with the regulations as well. We have requested the mines to have quarantine facility at Marula. In fact, they've indicated for the cases that they picked up.
Can you please ask everyone who is not speaking now to please switch off your microphones? We don't want to hear that you are having tea at this time. Whoever is having tea, I don't know. But please, can we switch off all our mics in particular, but also our video cameras if we are not on the platform now, please?
No, thank you. In terms of quarantine facilities, for instance, at Marula, they have a quarantine facility with 100 beds. So all the cases that they picked up, people were quarantined there, including at Mponeng, they had their own. And also, we've been encouraging the mines that they must collaborate where necessary. And that's what we've also been doing through the inspections. Now, in terms of the communities, honourable members, the guideline that we've gazetted to mitigate and manage COVID in the sector, we've gazetted last week. We've encouraged the employers or the mining sector to work together with the local authorities as well to assist. And Minister has clearly indicated some of the initiatives that have been embarked upon by the respective mines, including Sibanye and Petra in this case. And I think that's what we generally emphasize as we also do the inspections through the sector. Thank you, TG.
Come, DJ. Hey.
Honorable Chairs, Minister, honorable members and colleagues, I'll be responding. Sorry about that feedback. I'll be responding to the presentation of the gas amendment. gas amendment bill has been classified by the state law advisor as a Section 75 bill, so it will not have those provincial implications. However, the upstream petroleum bill has been classified as a Section 76 bill, and that means that it has implications on provincial consultations. So there will be those robust engagements both with the National Assembly as well as the NCOP on the petroleum upstream bill. But maybe at this point, Minister, I might as well take the opportunity to apprise the honourable members on how far we've gone with both bills actually. On gas, we are almost ready to take it to cluster. Last week, Monday, we responded to concerns that were raised by the state law advisor. So we're waiting for feedback from them so that they give us pre-certification of the bill. As soon as we get that pre-certification, we'll be ready to take the bill to cluster. And so it will go to cabinet. On the upstream petroleum bill, since the comments period closed at the end of February, and we received a number of comments from different stakeholders and social partners. And then shortly after that, while we were planning to do consultations throughout the country, we then went into lockdown. However, we have been hard at work with consultations with our stakeholders using virtual meetings. We've consulted the oil industry broadly, the upstream petroleum industry broadly. We've consulted organized labor, we've consulted a number of NGOs and other government departments. We have, however, been receiving concerns from some NGOs that they are objecting to the method of consultation that we've employed because it excludes communities. And we've responded to them to say we are not excluding communities. We understand that communities might not be privy to technology to be able to connect with us via virtual meetings. So we've said to them, as soon as we're out of lockdown, we will be going out to communities to consult them on the bill. It's not that we are excluding them. It's a question of saying, let's allow the work to proceed where it can using a virtual technology. So that's where we are broadly with the two bills. And we are quite comfortable that our work is progressing okay, and we should be okay to table the bills in Parliament by the end of this financial year. Now, there was also a question on the funding for small-scale miners. This year, from the fiscus, we received an allocation of about 23 million rands, which we are going to use to assist small-scale miners. As of next week, Tuesday, we have a committee that sits and processes applications that we receive. So we will be sitting on Tuesday to adjudicate the applications that we've received. And we, upon approval of those applications, we then instruct IDC to release the funds, because IDC manages the funds for us. And the last question in relation to whether we have any plans to resuscitate small businesses affected by COVID-19, we have taken the approach that says over and above the small-scale mining funds that we have, because they are limited, we're also encouraging mining companies to tap onto the 500 billion rand stimulus package that has been announced by President. So all the companies that are talking to us, we are ensuring that we advise them to also approach the National Treasury as well as SARS for the relief packages on tax and all that, and for them to be able to tap on all the incentives that National Treasury has put on the table for them. I'll stop there, DG. I think that's it from my side. Thank you.
DG, I'm granting you a penalty time of 10 minutes to finish.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Good afternoon, honorable chairs, honorable members, honorable minister. My name is Jacob Mbele. I'm going to respond or add to the issue that the minister touched on which was about the work that we're doing on emergency power. The there are a number of initiatives apart from the 2,000 megawatts that I should touch on. Out of the RFI that we ran in December, or the request for information, we identified that the projects or the proposals that had come to the department could be categorized into those that require long-term power purchase agreement and those that require short-term supply agreement with whoever the offtake is. So we divided the programs into two. And because ESCOM procurement processes allows them to procure directly the projects that can contract on short-term, we've actually referred those to ESCOM, and you may be aware that ESCOM has already run a process of procurement. They had issued 2 requests for proposals for projects that are available that are looking for short-term supply contract. And these are generally the projects that or the facilities that are already operational and they've got additional power that they can make available to the national grid. But ESCOM is also running or looking at demand side management, which is basically they believe that there's about 300 megawatt of potential demand side of reducing on the demand side. And then the next initiative that we're looking at is that, again, it is in the public domain that the IPPs have indicated that they may have available additional capacity that they would like to add to the grid. The IPP office is working on that initiative. From the work that they've done so far, we've identified that there's about 128 megawatts that is possible. And that process is underway. And we believe that these initiatives that I've just mentioned, we believe that they can be finalized and they can bring the power into the national grid within the next 3 months to 6 months. Coming to the 2,000 megawatts of emergency power, I can report that one of the biggest milestones that we had to go through before we could actually initiate the procurement process was the concurrence by NERSA on the Section 34 that the minister had issued. NERSA has, in the last week, concurred to the determination, and the department is now working with the IPP office and preparing documentation for procurement of these 2,000 megawatts. And we believe that it should be out within the next month or month and a half, the latest. And I can also confirm that we've also had to obviously address some of the concerns that ESCOM as the buyer had in terms of the risk sharing, and those issues have been addressed, and ESCOM has confirmed that they will participate as the buyer for the 2,000 megawatts. I think that's the feedback I can give at this point. Thank you.
Good afternoon, honorable chairs and honorable members, honorable minister. I want to respond to 2 questions briefly. The first one is on the diesel, and then the other one is on what we're doing in terms of the price of oil. Firstly, I want to say that in as far as diesel is concerned, there is no shortage of diesel, but the stocks of diesel are low. That is a fact. What we saw is that there was a surge in demand when the country moved from level 5 to level 4. And that surge in demand happened when all the refineries in the country were in shutdown because of the reduced demand. So what has been implemented now is a rationing of supply. So for example, if you, as a retailer, you order 100,000 liters of diesel, you are going to be supplied with 70,000 or in some cases 50,000. This is to make sure that no one runs out of stocks of diesel. How long will this persist? We expect that this situation will self-correct by this weekend. And why are we saying so? And that is because the Supref refinery owned by BP and Shell has started up and will be producing by this weekend. Also, Engen is in the process of starting up their refinery, and they will also be producing diesel by this weekend. What else is happening is that we have 2 import vessels. One has docked in Durban and is busy offloading diesel as we speak. One is offloading in East London and could not dock in PE because of weather. So that is where we are in as far as supply is concerned. On the issue of the oil price, I think the benefit has already been passed by the minister to the consumer in the fact that, in the sense that there was a R3.50 that was passed per liter, that was passed to the consumer in the past 2 months as a result of low oil prices. Of course, we know that the oil price has now increased, so some of those gains we will lose come next week when the price is changed. But that has had, as indicated in the presentation, the low fuel prices have had an impact on inflation, and then that has been passed on to the economy as a whole. Thank you very much.
The last 3 questions that I would just want to wrap up quickly. There was a question on whether are we giving the required support to Mintech and Pelchem. The answer is in affirmative. However, it must also be noted that they are also required to comply with the prescripts, and so that support is being done within the confines of the law. There was also a question around the export of diamonds. We know that the minister has been meeting with the relevant stakeholders, including the Mineral Council, on some of the challenges that the sector is going through. Now, this issue, it has been brought to our attention. We have raised it with the CEO of the regulator. It is receiving the necessary attention that it deserves. There is also a meeting later tonight with the CEO of the regulator, together with the diamond producers, to see how can we assist. Because one of the things that we are trying to avoid, of course, it is the right of anyone to go to the courts, but we try to resolve matters within the department before they can even go to the courts. And so if then we can't reach any consensus, then the parties would be able to opt for other avenues to seek a relief. And so, but we are optimistic that it's a matter that will be able to resolve. There was a question around the infections, whether they arose from the mines. With what we have observed from Mponeng, honorable members, they would also take note of the fact that those people are coming from the surrounding communities. They are within the townships, and so it is not like they found the virus or they were infected as a result of them working at the mine. You remember that after the minister issued a directive that there must be a rigorous screening and testing. Now they started with that process. When these people, they came back to work, they first started by screening them, and also after that they were tested. And now most of the people that have been tested, they did not have any symptoms of COVID-19, but the mine, based on the directive that was issued by the minister, they had to comply, and they complied. Then as a result of that, people were found to be positive. I think the other questions the minister has responded to, but the only point that I just want to touch on is that we have been, as we are coming with our entities, yes, indeed, some of the issues on COVID-19, we touched on them, but in the main, we were aware that we'll be required to come back here to account in terms of what are the measures that we have put in place in responding to COVID-19 challenges. Of course, the Minister has clarified this question that we have entities. You will remember that these entities, we also transfer funds to them to implement certain disciplines on behalf of the department. And so that's what makes them to be entities of the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy. I think, Honorable Chair, we have tried to cover all the questions. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, TG. Before you could steal my 1 minute, in fact, you've already stolen my 1 minute. Honorable members, I want to check from the NCOP after this. We will have Honorable Phillips with your 3 minutes, Honorable Volmarans, Honorable Kula, 3 minutes, all of them. Is there any member of the NCOP who has not been given an opportunity to ask a question, who's going to be speaking for the first time, so that when we finish with those members and the questions are answered, we will enter the second part of it, which will be follow-up questions if we still have got time. But I want to check a member, honorable member from the NCOP, any member who has not been given an opportunity to ask a question.
Chair, I think they are fine.
Okay, thank you, Chairperson. Honorable Phillips.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just trying to turn my camera on. It seems to have, there we go. Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I've just got a couple of questions. A lot of the timelines in the tables go 9 to 12 months. Now, I'd just like to know, for that timeline, is that the timeline that you're going to take before you start the project, or 9 to 12 months, the time that you envisage to actually get the project off the ground? If so, can you provide us with a list of the pre-feasibility studies that have been done, or the feasibility studies? That would be really great. Then the other one that I wanted to ask is on slide 27, you want to reduce the input costs. Now, the major input cost of the smelters is power and labor. If you can tell us how you're going to reduce those costs, that would be really great, because we've got a lot of smelters in our area. And then on slide 28, the minting of the platinum coin. That's a great idea. And I'd just like to know, will that coin be exempt from VAT, or will VAT be charged on that particular coin? And the projects on slide 23 that you are listing, the 4 areas where you're going to explore, can you please give us a list of what minerals you're looking for in each of those specific areas? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Honorable Phillips. Honorable Volmarans.
Thank you, Chair. Let me take this opportunity to greet both the chairs, the minister, and the team as a whole. Chairperson, firstly, let us acknowledge the fact that the department has done quite splendid work. If you compare with the entities that came through, the questions that we asked, the clarities that we asked, and it has been incorporated in interventions by the department, it must be applauded. A number of issues that they put on the table, Chair, or the entire presentation is underpinned by, 1, saving jobs, attracting investments, and also creating new jobs. I think that is basically what we understand from there, apart from the other questions. Now, a number of questions I'm disadvantaged because they have been answered. The question of the protocol where people come from outside to the mines. That quarantine protocol has been answered by the minister. Mr. Msiza has answered a few. Ntokozo read my mind when she was dealing with small-scale miners and the IDC management part. Now, there's an initiative that deals with the manufacturing of sanitizers, manufacturing of masks and shields. From the briefing of the different ministers, there is a sort of production within the country. Is this not an opportune time for the departmental entities to be helped either by resources funding so that they can assist in ramping up production so that they can have a place in the market for this sanitizers and masks, shields, and so forth? That is one of the questions. And the other one was the capacity, and it has been asked and answered through Honorable Malinga. The purchasing of stock, do we have the resources, both financial and the capacity to store at these low prices that we have at this stage? But other questions have been answered by the participants before, Chairperson. Thank you.
Honorable Kula.
No, thank you very please, Slalo. Greetings to the chairperson of the select committee of the NCOP, the minister and the department's team. I think my first question stems from the question posed by Honorable Volmarans, that with the gradual opening up of the economy, of schools, of universities, and etc., there will be an increase in the demand of PPE, screening and testing kit. How is the department positioning some of its entities like Mintech and Ketlapela to benefit a larger share of this demand? My second question is around the, I think it was covered in the executive summary and the response, that many mines have been undergoing screening at a larger scale, but less so with regards to testing. What is the department's plans to ensure that there is an improvement in the level of testing that is done by mining companies as we prepare to enter level 3 of the lockdown? In the presentation around the strategic fuel fund, there is a suggestion that says that, and I quote, the government through SFF is also looking at the opportunity to of purchasing of the level of strategic stock to purchasing of crude oil. And in another slide, it reads that lower oil prices have also created storing opportunity for the strategic, which has been able to rent out, for the strategic fuel fund, which has been able to rent out some of its tanks to international oil traders, earning an income from this in the process. My question is as follows, Chair. How much of SFF tanks have been rented out to international oil traders and the economic benefit of such, and how many remains for us to be able to undertake what I deem as the most logical gesture, which is that of the government through SFF being able to do it for themselves? Also, Chairperson, bearing in mind the high demand of crude oil, when there is this challenge of the COVID-19, or when we are at lower levels of the alert, would it have not been ideal for the option of, rather than to rent out the tanks to international trader, for the SFF to rent out their tanks to international oil traders, for us to be able to store the fuel ourselves? Lastly, Chairperson, or second before last, is that there is a suggestion that says the department will motivate for a government agency, either the State Diamond Trader or the African Exploration in Mining and Finance Corporation, to procure strategic minerals for the state. I think this, Chairperson, is a suggestion that will be welcomed, and I think it is long overdue. But I wanted to check with the department when looking at the mandate of both the State Diamond Trader and the mandate of the AMFS. Is it not strategic that this will be a role that will be undertaken by the African Exploration, Mining and Finance Corporation? I had a question that I also wanted to ask, Chairperson, but
can you wrap up, please? Okay.
There was a question that I wanted to ask, but after the way the minister summarized Honorable Mchenjan, I think I will not ask that particular question anymore. Thank you very much, Chairperson.
Okay. Honorable Minister, the time is 1 minute plus, is 1 minute past 2. At 12 past 2, can you please bring the ropes to me?
Chairperson of the Portfolio Committee and the Chairperson of the Select Committee, honorable members, I'm going to allow the team to answer questions and take the last questions. And I must indicate that from 2 o'clock now, the national coordinating, the National Command Council is starting its sit. But let me finish this question and then allow the team to deal with the second phase. After, when they have answered the question, I will come back and make few remarks, and then I hope you will release me to go to the National Coordinating Council. DJ?
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. We will respond to the questions. DDG?
Unmute, Ndogozo, unmute.
Apologies.
Unmute.
My apologies once again for the feedback noise. On the question around
Minister and DG Simdogozo is in an awkward situation of communication.
DG?
Where is the DD?
It seems the whole team DMRE.
Okay, let me start. Come. Okay. Can you hear me, Mr. Chairperson?
Yes, we hear you.
I can see that Honorable Bilangulu is now back. Let me deal with few questions. I hope that the team will reconnect. One, there's a question that input costs are mainly energy and labor. You know, that is an ideological position, because operations are not only energy and labor. There are many other aspects of the operation that constitute input costs. And if we are to improve input costs, we must look at the company all round. I had a discussion with a few mining companies, and one of the things that we're beginning to understand together is that one of the highest costs in the industry is mindset. Mindset and resistance to change is costing the industry heavily. So we must work together in changing.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairs. I need to answer the question on the strategic fuel fund. Now the
in the middle of sentences.
Can your boss was still on the floor because you disappeared from the screens. We couldn't find you on the radar, so you were like a lost flight. You couldn't allow the minister to finish or hand over. I'm sure you are not aware that you were lost.
May I proceed?
He's taking over.
Okay, Kubeka. Okay, I will come back later.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. In as far as the strategic fuel fund is concerned, you always have to have a balance between what you purchase and what you basically allow the other oil traders to store. So effectively, we do have between 4 and 5 million barrels of storage available. And now if you do the mathematics, you would need quite a number of dollars for one to purchase 4 million barrels. Okay. So that is a balance that you always have to strike. When you rent out the storage, you earn income also in dollars. And when you do the conversion into rent terms, there is a benefit for the strategic fuel fund, which benefit then is also used to replenish the stocks. I'm not sure if I've covered, but that's where I would want to leave it, that we have 4 to 5 million barrels of storage that we can play around with at the moment. Thank you.
We cut Ndogozo in the middle, TJ.
Ndogozo, can you wrap up?
Okay, Honorable Minister, I don't know at what.
Okay, upinde wa disappeara. Upinde wa disappeara, kubeka TJ.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. I think there is only one question that is still outstanding, or two. We are supporting our entities. You remember, Minister, one of the things that you have raised is that Mintech, for an example, is a research organization. Now, we need also to make sure that in terms of marketing, there is that component, because they must produce in big numbers. We want mass production of what they are doing. And now there must be an element also of marketing the products that they are producing. And that would also be applicable with Pelchem as well. In fact, that is a strategic position or decision that we have taken in the department to support them. Now, the other question, it is in relation with the minerals that we will be looking at. We are looking at rare earth elements. We are also looking at fluorspar. We are looking at phosphate. And so those are some of the minerals that we will be looking at from those explorations that we presented earlier. But by and large, Honorable Minister, I think you will just summarize. I think we have covered all the questions that honorable members have raised. So thank you very much, Honorable Minister.
But DG, you are summarizing a number of minerals. If we bump into gold, we'll mine it. If we bump into PGMs, we'll mine them. If we bump into manganese, we'll mine them. So when we do exploration, we're looking for minerals. Once we discover them, half the time we discover a mineral, sometimes in the majority of cases, we discover a combination of minerals. So as long as we step up exploration, the life of mining is better. Now, let me leave the input because I think I've finished that question. The last point I want to make is that in terms of manufacturing PPEs, the discussion what we're having as a country is to increase our manufacturing capacity so that we don't import everything. We must be able to manufacture things. We need to protect some of sectors that are small and coming, but it also requires a more aggressive entrepreneurship in society. Instead of waiting for luck and every time somebody make a discovery, we complain who has made that discovery when we're not active in the market. Our people must be encouraged and be assisted to be active in manufacturing. The last point I want to leave the ministry, the meeting with Chair, is that just 2 points. In the country, we're having 11,217 active cases. We have 11,917 recoveries. The 481 deaths, the 312 cases in the mines are part of those figures. Sometimes there is a mistake of thinking that mining is a country within a country. Isolate the 312 cases in mining out of the actual big picture of the country. We're having over 23,000 cases as a country. Out of that 23,000, 312 cases are in the mines, and want to monitor those. I agree with Mr. Melam that we can do better in terms of the petroleum sector, though half of it is in communities. So cost cases in that sector are swamped in the communities, but we'll look into a dashboard for that sector. The last point I want to leave is that the committee must remember that the demand for diamonds has collapsed in all major centers, US, Europe, and China, and that will impact on our export capacity. I wanted to leave those cases and beg both chairperson to release me to go and join the National Command Council. Otherwise, I will miss very important issues and discussion that will impact on the department.
You are released, Minister. You are released, Minister.
Thank you, Memodisa. I hope that chairperson of the portfolio committee cannot change that decision by the Senate. The chairperson from the Senate has released me.
You may make a person change his mind. That's by statements made. Can we allow and release the minister? Nifike lapho niwushintshe ni administration umhlonyane njengento yokulapha umphakathi.
Uyawufuna
that izosebenza ezimayini. Abasebenzi basezimayini.
Uyawufuna zathi ndinawapha
umhlonyane.
Zathi uyawufuna ndinawapha.
Okay. Now let's release the minister. Honorable Chair, I suggest that if it needs be, let's start with you as the NCOP members, probably 3 if there are any, with 1 minute each to make follow-up questions. We still have got time. We can do these follow-up questions. I looked at us all when we are here. I think from the NA, we've got about, if I'm not mistaken, we've got 10.
10.
And if we add the NCOP, it means we can fit on the 15 minutes. Can you check in the chairperson from the NCOP, comrades, people who honorable members, yeah, who wants to make follow-up questions?
Okay. Thanks, Chairperson. Let me check. Honorable Ngwenya, do you have any question?
Thanks, Chairperson. All my questions have been answered. Ngiyabonga kakhulu, Sihlalo.
Ngiyabonga, Mama. Honorable Matibe, do you have any question?
I might not have a follow-up, Honorable Mutise, because I did not ask, but just as a by-the-way issue that they can also reflect on, the demand of the minerals might decline looking at the COVID-19. What could be their mitigating factors in relation to the Africa free trade? And yeah, that's what I wanted to look into. And just lastly, the issue of illegal mining, I don't know whether it was addressed before I arrived into the meeting, and its impact on the spread of coronavirus. Yeah.
Okay. Honorable KP? Honorable Abiskarke?
Yes, Chairperson, I'm here. I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. Oh, thanks. Chair?
Are you done? Are you done, Chair?
Yes, we are done.
Okay, let me in 1 minute. Honorable Kula. 1 minute. Do you have any question of follow-up?
He doesn't have.
You don't have? Okay. Honorable Phillips, any follow-up? 1 minute.
Yes. Thank you, Chair. Sorry, my question about VAT being levied on the platinum coins was never answered. If I could get an answer to that, please. Thank you.
Okay. Is Honorable Tenjan?
Yes, Chairperson. Thank you. Yeah,
Any follow-up in 1 minute?
Yes, I do have. Chairperson, I'm worried there. It's a pity the minister is gone now, but at least the DG is there, is going to tell him. It's not right for the minister to tell us when we ask questions, then he said we are angry or we got anger. This is exactly, you must remember that this pandemic is a serious issue. People are dying here. It's not a joke. So when we ask questions on behalf of the community. So it's not anger, it's the reality. So we must stop to come here and tell us that we are asking anger questions here. And then on the entities, Chairperson, when I said they must not repeat what the entities have said, it's correct because the entities were here. They told us exactly they're going to start manufacturing those kits, testing kits. Why would they come and tell us the same thing? Then what is the use of the executive on the other side of the entities? That means there's got no use at all. So they can't take their job. We know they belong to this department. And also by saying they must close the mine, does it mean that because the parliament is closed now, we're out of job? Is what he's saying. Because we are saying they can close until the pandemic is over, not to finish the job to say people must go home. It's not, I never said that. So he must be realistic. He must not come and intimidate us when we ask questions. It's not right, Chairperson, because these questions are asked by the community. Thank you very much.
Okay, Honorable Volmans, I hope you take notes, DG.
No, Chair. I'm sufficiently covered, Chair.
Okay.
Chair. Yes, I'm covered.
Is Honorable Milankulu in? Because I only hear the minister is telling us about him being in. None. Honorable Linga.
Thank you, Chairperson. Mine is not a question, but to commend the department that they are now concentrating on assisting small mining houses during this COVID-19. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, Honorable. Honorable Fanyan. Follow up 1 minute.
Thank you very much, Chair. The network has been really dealing with me, so I missed most of the answers from the department. But I just want to say, Chair, on the rehabilitation trust fund, I just want to tell the department that we will be watching you very, very closely to make sure that this fund is not abused and that it is directed to the people which is supposed to benefit in the end of the day. So we just want to tell the department that we will be watching you very closely on this one. And we hope that you'll be giving us also the reports as we move forward. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Honorable Milam.
Thank you, Chairperson. Chairperson, just to start off with, my question about the downstream assets that were looking to be procured, specifically slide 19 and 22. I don't believe that was answered. What downstream assets and where are those costs coming from? Where is the funding coming from? Then, just to follow up on the thing about the diamonds, the DG spoke about the fact that there was no demand, but the fact of the matter is that the Diamond and Precious Metals Regulator is preventing producers, traders, and license holders from putting those diamonds on export at the Diamond Export Exchange Center. So that is ultra-virus, and I'd really like to know what the DG is doing about that. My last comment was Mr. Mbele spoke about the rationing of supply of diesel. Now, he said there's no shortage, but a rationing of supply is indicative of a shortage or a potential shortage. I acknowledge that it's going to self-correct, but the question that I have to ask in follow-up is, what is the status of strategic reserves that is being held by refineries and wholesalers? In the draft strategic stocks, fuel stocks policy of 2013, which has never been adopted, but we need to actually move on that. It says that wholesalers and refineries should hold 14 days supply. I'd like to know whether they do hold supply. If so, how much, and what is being done to access that supply. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mailam. Babu Masaule.
Thank you very much, Chair. The minister has mentioned a very interesting point that they've agreed with mines that workers who are coming back to work, but from the declared epicenters like your Eastern Cape, your Western Cape, your Gauteng, they've agreed with mines that they must be screened and tested before they go to work. Operative word being to work. I just want to deposit a wish there that I think it should be those that are coming from the epicenters are screened and tested before they go to the communities that they were not in otherwise as they were in their own provinces or other countries, because communities should come first before the workplace. Chair, I just want to deposit the wish that though the minister is not here, I know Mr. Msiza is here, that we should prioritize communities that will bear the brunt of this transmission from other provinces, other countries to where they stay. Unfortunately, it's mining towns. They can't go anywhere. They stay there. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Honorable Masaule, DG, you are at the center.
Thank you very much, Chair. We will respond to the questions.
Chairperson, with your permission, I will respond to two questions. One, I think it is true that had we not done anything, had we not rationed, there would have been a shortage, because that potential was there for a shortage. But I think the refiners have come to the party. In fact, some of the refineries are coming back on stream ahead of schedule. But this was because of the extraordinary times that we live in. In as far as strategic stocks are concerned, it is true that there was a strategic stocks policy that was drafted, and that in the main was going to deal with crude oil stocks, but also then finished products. But it is also true that that document has not been finalized. But I think our policy department is hard at work looking at finalizing that. The main reason really for that not being finalized was really the issue of affordability. How do you finance that? Because you cannot ask people to store or keep strategic stocks without compensating. And at the time, the crude oil price was high and fuel prices were also high. On the issue of the downstream assets, we would want to request that, because there will be approaches to members or to companies that operate in the sector, perhaps we be allowed to just indicate that it would be those assets that involve infrastructure, such as storage assets and so on. The appetite, as was indicated in today's one of the publications, for those is not really there in the department as well as its entities. So it's mainly infrastructure, bulk infrastructure assets that ordinarily the state gets involved in. And that is where I would want to leave it. Thank you very much, Chair.
Good afternoon, chairpersons. Good afternoon, DG, members of parliament, colleagues. I'll be answering the question on the illegal mining and its impact on the COVID-19. Yes, chairpersons, we are continuing to receive reports regarding illegal mining. And as the department, we are continuing to work with the law enforcement agencies. For instance, in Limpopo, about a week or so ago, we're able to confiscate about 20 trucks, and those trucks were carrying chrome, stolen chrome. And then together with SAPS, the HOTS, Assess for Facial Unit, and the NPA, we're able to confiscate those trucks. At the moment, we're working. There's a process that we're going through to make sure that we don't lose that chrome to the state, because we all agree that the illegal mining is costing the state revenue lost. And again, we've identified some hotspots for the illegal mining, for instance, areas like your Limpopo, Mpumalanga, especially on coal, Northwest, and then Eastern Cape and KZN mainly will be sent along the rivers. So yes, Chairperson, we are working continuously with the law enforcement agencies. Thanks.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Chairpersons. My name is Lucas Molaudzi. I'll be responding to the question that relates to the timelines. You'll realize that we've got two documents here that we're talking to, which are intertwined to those interventions implementation phases, which is the strat plan for 5 years, the APP for 1 year. But in terms of the timelines indicated in the interventions, they will be dealt with in terms of the project management principles. In other words, there will be the quick wins that will be taking off, but in the main, the timelines will be dealt with in accordance with the initiation phase, that is the takeoff, project inception, as well as project approval and implementation. Those that are feasibly doable within the first year, which is aligned with the APPs and the corporate plans of SOEs, will be done, and the rest will be done in terms of the MTEF period as well as the MTSF period. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Okay, thank you so much. Apologies again for the feedback noise. Bye-bye. Apologies for that, Honorable Chairs. On the question about the platinum coin, we were saying that we are currently undertaking research and we are in conversation with the National Treasury and the industry on the platinum coin. But we are not approaching this initiative as just a standalone issue. It's a broader issue where we've taken a position that says ourselves, Russia and Zimbabwe, hold the largest world reserves of PGMs, and yet we continue to be price takers. So we're looking at broad interventions which we could employ to influence demand, one, but also influence the price of PGMs. And just the coin is but one of them. But at a broader level, we're even looking at suggestions that have been brought to our attention, suggestions around using platinum for reserves as well. So as soon as we have advanced that research, we would be happy to share details. At this point, we haven't finalized the modalities of whether the coin would be VAT exempted or things like those, but we continue to engage National Treasury, SARS, the SA Mint, and the Reserve Bank as we proceed with this work. And then, Honorable Mailam, you asked the question around the demand for diamonds. It is a fact that since 2018, the demand for diamonds has been in a steady decline, and the Hong Kong uprisings last year did not help that trend either, as well as the US-China trade war, because you would know the biggest markets for us for diamonds is US, China, Hong Kong. So it is a fact that the demand for diamonds is in decline. And now the latest intervening circumstance in that economy is the COVID-19 pandemic. And that has also not helped the situation either. Now, this is backed by science and real figures, because on a monthly basis, we collect production stats from mining companies and we analyze those and we juxtapose that against the statistics from the DEC. That's now the export figures of diamonds. And throughout our analysis since the end of 2018, we have been in a decline. We still are in that trend, and we're busy forecasting as we speak to see where this is going to go post this pandemic. But let me quickly talk to the issue that you raised about the DEC not allowing trading to happen. When we got to level 4, we took a decision to say we cannot say mining must open and not allow trading to happen, because then it would have meant that we are saying mine and stockpile and not make money and not be able to pay salaries. So trading at the DEC is allowed. Trading is currently happening at the DEC. The problem is we've limited it to producers and not traders. Reason behind that being, when we saw the threat of employment and job losses from producers as well as beneficiaries, which are the cutters and polishers, we then took a decision to say we would allow them and not traders, because traders are not, they don't employ anybody. They are just one-man shows who are in essence middlemen who would buy ordinarily from, for example, De Beers and want to sell as a middleman. Whereas the DEC, we've opened up the DEC to all the producers, large and small, including diamond diggers, for that matter, from the Northwest and the Northern Cape. They're allowed to trade as we speak at the DEC. But the economics and the downward trend on the demand for diamonds is still in decline, has been in decline for almost 2 years now, and we're still seeing that trend continuing for the foreseeable future. Thank you, Honorable Chairs and DG. I'll pause there.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. We have responded to all the questions. We have also taken note of some of the comments from the honorable members. Thank you very much, Chair.
Okay, thank you, DG. I'm just worried about sometimes the question of time. Before I go to the chair of the NCOP, I'm worried when if we were to leave this thing, may I then say we will have to go back to our respective committees, probably for now individually, but I suggest that we will have to quickly bring forth the issue of the minutes of this meeting. The reason I'm saying so, honorable members, is that I'm of the view that we will not exhaust most of the issues that we have dealt with today as questions of clarity. I believe that as a committee, as committees of parliament, or as a committee of parliament with different houses, we have a duty and a responsibility to ensure that we satisfy ourselves that the work that is being undertaken, it is in the best interest of the country, in the best interest of workers, but also it's in the best interest of growing our economy. The issues, DG, if we had time, I would have wanted to raise first to start from the point which I'm not sure whether the minister understood, which was raised by Honorable Mahlaule, with regards to the fact that the understanding is clear. The first issue is about a comprehensive strategy to ensure that health and safety is strengthened, in particular in light of the COVID-19 epidemic. So sometimes I get a sense that we want to separate these issues. The context, which I think for me is quite critical, is that any exercise that is being undertaken, it has to ensure that there is maximum health and safety protection. There is an issue of ensuring that this pandemic should not be seen to be anti-trade or anti-economy. Secondly, we must ensure that there is job security. We must ensure that we grow the economy, not the other one better than the other. All of them comprehensively need to be attended to, but also we have to ensure that we create jobs out of such an economy. So I'm saying, therefore, it might have been nice to have much more an open discussion, which is the context Honorable Mahlaule I thought was coming to, which I wanted to share, to say, as we continue to make such interventions. For an example, honestly, any person who thinks that the line of conducting business, it is about other matters, such other matters as a consequence, which is why some would argue and say, then the area of regulation has to come in. The point is simple, is that in the absence of a managed process, which is output, which is about production levels, there is, I don't think we should then be not aware of the fact that if I employ 50 people now and I can produce as much as I can with 50% of that, which is 25, most definitely they might be very hard. I'm just saying, so I would have loved to have that discussion being taken further in terms of that. But linked to this, for me, we still have to have a thorough discussion also around the issues of energy security and energy generation in the context of where the pandemic is. If we say it is still going to be with us, and we are just at the entry point, if one were to use that word, if it is allowed in health terms, we're just at the entry point, and this is a winter disease, if we were to use again, if it is allowed. But this is a disease that strives under the cold conditions. We should be able then to satisfy ourselves that the measures in place in terms of energy generation and energy security are matters that can give us a guarantee. It may not only be the department, but at a policy level. So that's why I'm saying I suggest that we will have to look at bringing back these minutes very quickly, look at them, start to engage, not from a presentation point of view, honorable members, whether we discuss them separately or jointly, or we start to discuss them separately and then later on jointly. We have, in my view, and from where I sit at an NA level, maybe we'll have to deal with the issues under matters arising so that we can have a thorough discussion. If we have to make concrete proposals to the department, then we must be able to do so. Lastly, DG, two issues that for me I thought they would be quite critical is the capacity of the department to respond, and also the status currently. Is the department, all its offices open, and what is the nature of operation? What are the demand or the cost implications of the intervention that you make? I think it would be nice to get clarity on those issues. But as I say, from where I sit as a chair, I can't forsake you because it's a lot of work that needs to be done. Can I then check with, before maybe if you want to have a take in your closing remarks, which will not be more than 5 minutes, can I check with the NCOP chair whether he has got any comments specifically on this matter?
No, Chair, I'm fine. I'm covered. Chair?
Want to have a take and you close your presentation at the same time.
Oh, okay. No, let me.
No, I'm saying the DG.
Oh.
No, we're coming for your closing remarks, Chair. Don't worry, I can't forget you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chairs of the Portfolio Committee and also Select Committee. We really appreciate the opportunity that you have offered to us to come and give you what we have put together as the department as part of our response to COVID-19 challenges, being it the current and also post-COVID-19. Chair, you have covered on some critical aspects. I will not respond to each and every aspect of your question, but the issue of production, which you have just raised, that maybe the mining companies may say, no, we have been able to produce at 100% with 50% labor. We have discussed this issue. We are all well aligned. We are not anticipating any challenge because it is something that we have raised with the Mineral Council together with other mining companies that are not necessarily members of the council. In fact, there is an understanding around this particular matter. Now, as for the department chair, whether are we ready as mining companies are going to ramp up, as we have indicated that this is going to be systematic. The decision has been made, and now starting from next week, the companies, they will start bringing people and we are not expecting 100% employees to be at work, because remember that we are still also on level 4, and there are still some restrictions, and so those restrictions are still applicable in terms of the regulations. Now, if they do that, which means especially those that are having people that are staying at their hostels, then they would be, contravening the rules, and so there is a better understanding. I must also say, Chair, just to put honourable members at ease, and also to give them some comfort that the mining companies have committed, especially for the employees that will be coming from SADC member states, in terms of the measures that will be put in place after they have screened them. If they don't present any symptoms, then they would be then issued with permits to come in. They would get into a transport that will be provided by the mining companies, well sanitized, and so then from there they will be going straight to the quarantine facility. Now, Chair, the other point that we just want to clarify, it is around the issues that we have raised pertaining to Carltonville, in particular, Mpone mine. We just want to confirm, as the Minister has indicated, that the mine is not operating at the moment. No underground operations are taking place. We were there even this morning to make sure that there is compliance, and we even engaged, we met with all the unions that are there. 4 unions actually do exist in that mine, and there is a meeting as of now between Labour and the management. And now, as for the collaboration, Chair, we have taken note also of your point that there must be a clear collaboration between all our entities. And so I'm sure you may see that out of the work that we have presented, we have tried to put to you that there is actually a collaboration amongst our entities in responding to the COVID-19 challenges. The issue of a comprehensive strategy that we must put in place, the Chief Inspector of Mines is still on the line, and so we will be dealing with this matter, Honourable Chair. But by and large, Chair, we are quite satisfied with the questions, and we have responded to the questions from honourable members. And as the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy, we are ready in terms of entering into a level 3, and would ensure that all the measures and systems are put in place in making sure that we comply with the regulations. And the Minister will, from time to time, based on the challenges, be in a position of issuing directions in dealing with whatever challenges that would be coming through. We'd like to thank you very much, Honourable Chairs and Honourable Members. Thank you.
Honourable Chairperson of the NSOP, you opened and welcomed us. Can we get your closing remarks before we go to announcement, if there are any?
Thank you, Chairperson. Let me take this moment to thank the department led by the Minister and DG for the presentation that they presented to us. Chair, I would like to say to the department, during the lockdown, there was no load shedding. DG, let's make sure that this load shedding, it must not be come back again. And the other issue that I would like to request from the department is to say, please put measures in place to counter a possibility of increasing of the cost of electricity. That will further add to the economic changes. Those are the issues that I'm looking for this time, that you have to deal with them, DG and the department. By so saying, I would like to thank you and all the members that have participated in this meeting, and those who did not participate, we thank you again. we are. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Beck.
Okay. Thank you, Chairperson. Honorable members, it's a good start. It's a good start. We have never had an exercise of this nature. Let's just accept that if there were any hiccups, it was never an intention to have them. We will try and improve in future. But I think this exercise, if it has made us to learn one thing, is that it is possible for the committees of the two houses to be able to collaborate and work together. First, to ensure that we expedite some of the processes, but at the same time, we deal with issues in a more comprehensive manner. But also, to some degree, we save time and cost. So I think if there is anything that would not have gone according to our expectations, bear with us as the chairpersons. We tried our level best, but we think it is important that the two houses must be able to collaborate, but never forget the distinct and the unique role that each of the houses is supposed to play together with its committees. Having said so, tomorrow the National Assembly, the Portfolio Committee, we are meeting again at 12 o'clock, dealing with the draft report. Unfortunately, there is a sitting of the NA again at 3, which means we will have to do everything possible because we must have been or start connecting from 2:30. So the best that we could do as we continue with the work of the committee tomorrow, we must be able to ensure that, because it's going to be the first hybrid sitting, which is about virtual, but at the same time physical. So we urge honorable members, especially those that will be going virtual, that we try and finish as much early as possible, but we'll have to do our job very well. With those words, thank you very much. It was hard, but we have tried. I remain with many questions, DG, and I've remained with many proposals. So if I was with time, I would have made my proposals that I think I will do it in the committee. Thank you very much, honorable members. Thank you very much to the department. Extend the word of appreciation. Let's hope the minister will lobby more for what is in the best interest of this industry where we are, which is minerals and energy. It's a huge industry. It has huge challenges, and we think it is critical and important that he forms part of some of these activities when they take place. Thank you very much, honorable members. The meeting stands adjourned until we get another arrangement that will put us together as the NCOP. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chairperson.